Okay, market price P equals 300 minus 1/6. Total quantity, capital Q. Capital letters represent the whole market or industry. Lowercase letters represent individual firms who have costs of 17,496 plus 30 Q plus 1/2 Q squared. So we're going to use profit maximizing conditions. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So we first know revenue equals price times quantity. And this is a lowercase q for the individual firm under consideration. So we've got a price of 300 minus 1/6 total quantity times the individual firm's quantity. Another way we can write that is 300 minus 1/6. Remember that the total quantity is all the firms besides firm 1 plus firm 1 is an individual times the quantity firm 1 makes individually, and this is factored with the price. So now I'm just going to expand that to 300 Q1 minus 1/6 all other firms times Q1's quantity minus 1/6 Q1 squared. That's the revenue. So the marginal revenue is the derivative of this, which is 300 minus 1/6 all the quantity made by the other firms minus 2/6 quantity made by firm 1. So we've got our marginal revenue, and then using this marginal cost up here, this was the total cost, so that tells us that the derivative marginal cost is 30 plus Q. So now we can set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, which was just 30 and then 2/2 Q, so I'm just going to write that as Q. And now we want to solve for Q. So we've got 30 plus Q equals 300 minus 1/6 all the other Q's minus 2/6 this little q. And one thing we can do is we can say that if there's n firms in the market, then the quantity made by the n minus 1 firms that aren't Q1 is n minus 1 times the quantity lowercase q that everybody makes on their own. So now we can write this as 30 plus q equals 300 minus 1/6 n minus 1q minus 2/6q. And we're going to try to solve for q. So I'll collect the 30 and the constants on the right. That'll be 270, 300 minus 30. Collect all the q's to the left. So we've got this q plus 1/6 n minus 1q, and then plus 2/6q. So do our best to simplify that. We've got like 6/6q plus n over 6q minus 1/6q, and then plus 2/6q equals 270. So that means that we've got 6/6, negative 1/6, and 2/6. So that makes 7/6q, and then we've got n6q, which we can really write that as 1/6, the common factor, times 1 plus 7 plus nq equals 270. So then q, if you solve for it alone, that equals 6 times 270 over n plus 7. So this little q just stands for the identical quantity that all the individual firms make. So now we're going to find out what happens to the market price and the market equilibrium if the profits are going to be 0. So we had a price equals 300 minus 1/6 the total quantity, where the total quantity was n times little q, so that'll be n times 6 times 270 over n plus 7. And plugging that in to the price function, you get price equals 300 minus 1/6, this thing, n over n plus 7, 6 times 270. So we're going to do our best to simplify this. We can write 300 as 30 plus 270. The 6th over here will cancel, so that'll be minus n over n plus 7 if we take away the 6's on top and bottom. And now we're just going to do our best to get common factors. We've got a 30 all by itself, but then we've got a 270 times a 1 and then a 270 times an n over n plus 7. So we can write that as 270 times parentheses 1 minus n over n plus 7. And you can rewrite a 1 as n plus 7 if you have a common denominator of n plus 7. So those n's will cancel out, and you'll get 30 plus 270, 7 over n plus 7. So now this is the market-wide price, and we're going to use that to find the profits, which have to be 0 in equilibrium, or else there'll be new entrants, and if they were negative, then people would leave, and that is going to adjust n so that n will be resulting in 0 profits. So we've got profit pi equals P times Q minus the cost. And this is little letters, so this just represents firm by firm basis. So we're going to plug in that price that we just got, which was 30 plus 7 times 270 over n plus 7. And that's the price times quantity minus the cost from earlier up at the very top was take off 7496, take off 30q, and take off half q squared. I'm making them all negative since costs lose money off profits. We're going to collect all the q's together. So we've got 30 plus 7 times 270 over n plus 7. Anything that has a q, we're just writing it together. So there was a minus 30 and then a minus half q squared. So all those guys are times q. And the 30's cancel. And then subtract off 7496. So the profit equals 7 times 270 over n plus 7 minus a half q. Recall earlier we found q in the box was 6 times 270 over n plus 7. So we can simplify this. A half of 6 is a 3. So you've got 7 minus 3 all times 270 over n plus 7. And then this q right here is also 6 times 270 over n plus 7. So I'll write that as 6 times 270 over n plus 7 minus the constant. So now we can write that as 4 times 6 times, we've got 270 over n plus 7 twice multiplied, so I'll just write that as 270 over n plus 7 squared minus 17496. And since we're in equilibrium, n is going to rise or fall until profits equal 0. So that means that 24, which is 4 times 6, times 270 over n plus 7 squared equals 17496. So 270 over n plus 7 squared equals 17496 over 24. So divide that, and you get 729, which happens to be a perfect square of 27. So if we took the square root of 270 over n plus 7 squared and square root of 27 squared, we just get 270 over n plus 7 equals 27. So you know that n plus 7 has to be 10 to make that true. So that means that n equals 3, and that's the number of firms in this oligopoly.